Welcome to Burnout and Beyond. I'm your podcast host, Victor Bartley, and I'm thrilled that you've joined the space where we encourage burnout recovery and prevention. Our guest today is Unique Castelle, a licensed clinical professional counselor. She shares the story of the day she lost it at work and how she began to recover from the burnout. Unique's experience and expertise you don't want to miss in this episode. Let's join the conversation as we grow beyond the burnout with Unique. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Burnout and Beyond. I am your podcast host, Victor Bartley, and today I am pleased to welcome to the space Unique Castelle. Unique, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much, Victor.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to have you in the space. And I know that the conversation that we are about to share will be deeply beneficial and a blessing to our audience and listeners. Unique, for those that don't know you, would you share just that 30-second commercial of who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Unique Castelle, as Victor said. Who I am, that's hard, but most people identify and work with me as a licensed clinical therapist or professional counselor in the state of Maryland. And I like to say I help people get over to that next step, whatever it is in life, whether it's transitioning from a first-time mom, transitioning from a marriage or through a marriage or into a marriage, transitioning jobs, transitioning from school. And so I help people put together the pieces to get from A to B and beyond.
Wow. I love the way that you explain that because, as kids, we kind of just, we go through these basic steps and connect the dots. And it seems that some of these things are so simple, but as you have expressed, these are major hurdles.
Yes.
The one step are really hurdles that have to be crossed with a variety of dynamics within the transition. And so that's super cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So we within transitions, burnout is something that can happen. It's not relegated to transitions, but it's something that can occur along the way. But in your own experience, or even with the clients that you have served, is there an episode or a story of burnout that sticks out to you that you can share with us?
Yeah, I'll talk about my own personal experience prior to coming into private practice. I've been in mental health now for, I guess, almost 10 years, and that's wild to even say. But I've been doing this work for about 10 years now. And just last year, I was working for a large corporation, and I moved up really quickly. I went from being like working in a program to director of the program, chief of staff, COO of the whole entire operation. And I remember coming home just like sitting on my floor in tears, or driving home and sitting in the car. Like, I don't even want to get out of the car, or going to work and feeling just this overwhelming heaviness that came over me. And it really caused problems in my marriage because I was bringing home that negativity, and so it would cause arguments in my marriage. And I'm like, why? Nothing is working here. Is it my marriage? Is it me? Is it work? And so I remember at one point even contemplating some passive suicidality and saying, I could just not exist anymore. And if I didn't, I think everybody would be better off if I just removed me from the equation. And so my family, they were really nervous. They're like, this is not you. And I was like, it doesn't feel like me, but I am literally depressed in the space. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to talk to the people. I had some false accusations that were happening at the job, and I found myself reacting, like fussing with people, really getting out of the professional character that they once known and that I prided myself on. And I just realized that this is no longer the space that I need to be in. Because if I don't get out, it's going to be the detriment of me. And I didn't want that. So.
Wow. No, that's thank you so much for opening up
Yeah.
and really just sharing your story. There are a few things that you highlighted that I think are just the reality of burnout, that it doesn't just stay in one place, but it affects all of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
As you said, it came home with you and it poisoned your relationships at home.
Mhm.
And it also not just was a work reality, but also a personal that you digested and even it leading to suicidal ideations, and as you
Mhm.
said, the passive suicidal ideations. Was the suicidal ideations the kind of breaking point for you? Is like something has to change, or was it somewhere else along that episode?
Unfortunately, no, that was not the breaking
Okay,
point.
okay, okay,
Depression is something that I have battled with now
okay,
for after, some difficulties in my life. I've
okay.
seen depression kind of pop up at
Got it.
different
Okay.
times. Um, and so that wasn't the scariest thing for me, sadly. The scariest thing was when I was at work and I actually lashed out at one
Uh,
of my employees.
okay.
Um, and I was just like, whoa. And my boss sent me home. I was just like, oh, I've become that girl. All
Mm,
right. I don't know what's next because I didn't, that was nothing, that wasn't something that I thought I would ever get to. And I was there, like I was in the workplace yelling and clapping and
yeah.
nice, nice.
Hey, Baltimore came out of you,
What
huh?
you not gonna do? And I said, ooh, all right, all right.
Listen, no, no, no. This is actually very powerful because one of the things that most ambitious and highly driven people pride themselves on is always being in control. And as you're saying, like, I would never, these statements that we're kind of challenged
Mhm.
not to say,
Yes.
I would never do this, or that's just not something I could ever, a boundary that I could ever cross.
Mhm.
Like nobody could test my metal enough in order
Mhm.
to, but it's like the undercurrents of burnout can push you beyond where you thought yourself capable of going.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's even like it's not even a push. It's more like a drag.
Wow, I like that.
I felt like it was inevitable
Wow,
for me to
wow.
go to a space and not necessarily lash out because Victor, I had people saying that I slept my way to the top. Um,
Mm,
I was only there because that's why I moved to Georgia to be closer to my lover. And I was like,
hmm,
this is an attack not just on me
sure.
professionally, this is an attack on my marriage,
Yeah,
me
yeah,
personally.
yeah,
Like I have
yeah.
personal ethics here. I've been accused of having relations with clients. And I was like, you guys are crossing so many just boundaries. And I'm supposed to hold it together. And so someone accused me of lying about getting them into a position or just not being honest about the duties that they were going to have to perform. And they called up my boss's assistant and was like saying all of this stuff. And she calls me in there. She's like, I know you didn't say that, but this is what they're saying. And I lost it. So much so I wear Apple Watch. The watch, I slammed my hands on the table and my watch was like, are you okay? And something just snapped. I was just like, I'm not okay. And I yelled at my boss, the owner of the company. I was just like, you don't protect me. You allow people to treat me this way. And I'm just like, oh, if I could have just like walked out and felt like I could provide for my family, I just would have left that day and never came back.
Now you and you can bypass on this if you would like, but one of the realities that I've also come to discover in my research on burnout is the uh, the impact that, and I don't want to just label it as racism, but I like to call it social caste,
Mm-hmm.
societal caste, where based on what your humanity is defined as determines your actual value. And a lot of the prejudice, discrimination, and behaviors are done implicitly through bias. And so people aren't always aware of this. And so this isn't something that a lot of people talk about, particularly with burnout, but the, the waves or the currents of gender, gender bias or race bias or class bias, just the intersection of them all can play a role in this. In looking back, do you think that was something that was also a part of, or that was being mixed in, an additional ingredient in the burnout that you experienced at work?
I mean, I would say if I were to look back at it, yes, it did. I think for
Okay.
me, a lot of it was age related
Okay.
because I
Yeah.
don't look my age, and so most people assume that I was new in the field. I didn't know what I was doing, um, and then I'm this young Black girl
Mhm.
in Baltimore running a multi-million-dollar business. Why? How did you get here?
Mhm. Mhm.
And that stress of trying to not so much prove my worth, but communicate. I deserve to be here because I've worked hard to get here. That was stress.
Yeah.
That was not remedied or or channeled turned into this is just heavy. I'm tired. This is crossed over to burnout. And I think we were a LGBT plus QIA allied
Okay.
company. And so if you came to work and you communicated your pronouns were they, I prided myself on making sure that that was something that was respected. And so to in turn be, I guess, somebody to come against me and say, I did not respect that and that I was engaging in a relationship that was counter to how I identify, I felt attacked. I was like, really? I worked so hard to make sure that this community feels appreciated, feels valued. And then for someone in the community to in turn point a finger and say that, no, I'm not doing that. And so it felt discriminatory on in a way that most people don't talk about. Like, because I didn't necessarily get picked on because I was a woman. Well, I got picked on because I was young and you know, it was, yeah, can you make it? It wasn't a race thing this time.
Okay.
Yeah, which was
Yeah.
weird. Which was weird.
No, and that's why I said I didn't want to just label it racism, because
Mm-hmm.
casting
Yeah.
isn't just about race. It's, as you said, the other intersectionality, the other
Mm-hmm.
intersection sectional realities that are used for labeling and
Yeah.
human hierarchy valuing. So no, that's insightful for sure. And you mentioned something that I want to just kind of probe a little bit more, this difficulty of distinguishing between defending that I belong or defending that I've deserved, or I'm not moving because, hey, I've worked for this position and I enjoy this position, I'm going to stay in this position. And the subtle difference of I've got to prove myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, it's not like, I know it's not this very clear line. It,
Listen, it's
it can get
murky.
very, it's
It,
very,
it's murky. It's a murky tangled web of nonsense. Okay, because I vacillated between, am I communicating who I am or am I trying to prove that I belong here?
mm,
And at times it simply came down to me just affirming, Unique, you've been in this, you've been doing this work, I think at the time for 8 years.
okay.
Like this is not your first walk in the park. This is not the first time you've worked with people who are all older than you and you've been in a position of leadership for
Mm,
them. You can do this. And so that line had to be me really setting the boundary for myself and saying, you don't owe them anything. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them this, I guess, this level of kindness or these niceties. You are there to do a job. Do your job, and that's it. If it goes beyond the job title, you don't owe that to them. It's extra. And so I found myself in meetings where I would have to just communicate frankly. No, this is the expectation. This is what we need. And if you're not able to do that, we need to have a different conversation. It did not go over well again because I was a young person coming in telling people who at times, sometimes were older enough to be my parents. And they were like, how are you going to tell me something? Because I'm your boss. I mean, it's not to be nasty, but this is what the job requires, and I need you to do it this way. Now we can talk about how that works with you, and how you think it's best to complete the task, but the task not being done is not an option. And so I had to affirm me. That was the line, the affirmation of you got this. Walk in it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I love that simple affirmation. But as you said, like it took there's some work, there's some massaging of self-acceptance and other elements that are necessary to get there. Some people it's easier than others, and I appreciate you like kind of walking us through, navigating that space in those murky waters. To stabilize yourself in the current.
If I could add, it
Yeah, go
didn't
ahead.
happen with this position. Honestly, it happened with going to a predominantly white institution and being in predominantly white spaces. And I had to accept that I belong here. I'm not just the token. That's not the reason why I'm here. No, I am here because I have valued experience that's needed in this space. And so growing up in spaces like that prepared me to come and be in a space that I wasn't necessarily appreciated for my experience. I was just the pretty face, the young pretty face of the company that interacted with the outside public. But when I came here, I was just supposed to be the pawn, and oftentimes they want me to fit in that space. But because of my experience in, predominantly white spaces, I learned, no, I'm not just the pawn.
Yeah.
I'm not the spokesperson. I'm not the black girl who speaks for all black people in general. I am not the pretty person who just, well, this is what the company does. No, I have valued experience and a wealth of knowledge that needs to be shared in this space, and I'm going to do that.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And where you learned it, maybe, and I don't know want to kind of categorize the experiences, but those may be the toughest grounds to do it in because of not just the personal work that's required, but also, as you're saying, dealing with the biases, the realities of being, if not the only, one of the only, and just all of the tangle web of reality that we know as white supremacy that exists.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's incredible. Now, prior to this experience, where you're identifying and acknowledging the burnout, were you in the, I guess now kind of looking back, would you say that this has been the only experience of burnout, or were there other experiences prior to this that just didn't get this to this point?
I think this was probably the only experience of burnout as classified as like full on burnout.
Got it.
I've been in several high stress, definitely a feeder to burnout situations. Yeah, if I think back on just like personal experiences or just experiences that I've witnessed, definitely that was burnout for sure. It was textbook burnout.
Yeah. No, I got you.
Prior to that, I think it was just high stress situations, that mismanaged stress
Okay.
situations.
Okay. No, and that's cool that you're differentiating that, because obviously the as I like the way you put it, high stress, chronic stress is a feeder for burnout.
Hmm.
Um, but it's not always just because you're in a high stress scenario doesn't mean necessarily that you're burned out.
Yeah.
Um, would Would you like to elaborate on that just a little bit, just on the difference, at least from what you've experienced, or in from a professional perspective as well, however you'd like to talk about it, but just the difference between just high stress scenarios or high stress seasons and episodes of burnout.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I mean, I guess this is something that I bring up to my clients when I'm talking about depression and anxiety. Like when it transitions from I'm having a depressed moment to I'm experiencing clinical depression. It's really about the longevity of it and how it starts to affect other areas of your life. When you're looking at high stress can be compartmentalized to certain areas. Like I'm stressed with my kids, I'm stressed with the job, I'm stressed with um, trying to meet all of the needs at church, I'm stressed with not being able to see my friend groups or trying to pay bills. And so you can pinpoint it. And yes, there are some biological factors that lead to that, but when it transitions over to burnout is when you cannot compartmentalize it anymore. It kind of gets messy. It's the spillover where you're noticing, I don't even know why I'm sad. I don't know why I feel this way. I'm just irritable with everybody, or I'm more tired, and it has nothing to do with sleep, right? It's transitioned from I'm able to pinpoint what's going on to now I don't know. I don't know the last time I met up with my friends. I don't know the time I was in edifying spaces, whether it's church or your hobbies or your support groups. I've not been to those places and I have no desire to go to them.
Mhm.
It's that transition from, like I said, that nice, neat, compartmentalized portion. If you think of it like, you know how kids have those little portion plates,
Yeah.
right? And so you're like, okay, my string beans are up there, my rice is over here, my pasta's down there at the bottom, and you can see it clearly. But
Mhm.
it becomes a bit murky when you put it in that lunch bowl and you spit it up in the backpack, and you're like, I don't know what's what now because my mom put this in, and it's all blended together, and I don't even know if
Yeah.
it's gonna have the same taste. And
Mhm.
so I was reading in preparation for this, I looked at like an infographic and it described it one being physical and one being emotional. And I said, that's it. That stress is more physical. You may have a headache, the backache, you are tired. But then when it transcends to that burnout, it's that emotional connection with it. And it's like now my thoughts and feelings are driving my behavior. It's no
Mhm.
longer the outward input, it's my inner input that's driving how I'm responding to everything around me.
No, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. No, yeah, the story of the kids just really related. I was thinking, I thought you were gonna say like you have it compartmentalized and they just start throwing it everywhere.
Oh, look, because I mean, it comes to that point. But it's kind of like when it
Yeah,
gets to the burnout, you might
absolutely.
throw it because you're like, it don't
Right.
even, you know how you could have something. Okay, I know for Thanksgiving, I am a mixer. I know
Okay.
everybody's, but I'm like, I gotta mix the mac and cheese with the yam with a little
Yeah.
turkey because it just tastes better. For my brother, on the other hand, if anything touches, it's ruined. That it's disgusting. It emotion. I'm like, bro, it's all
It's
going
the
to the
same
same.
food. It's going to.
I mean, come on. He's like, nah, bro. It tastes different. I gotta eat the mac and cheese by itself. I gotta taste a little bit of the turkey. And I'm like, nah, it's just weird. But for him, it's an emotional difference. And
Yeah.
I think when we think of burnout in that way, that might cause somebody to throw the whole plate away if it starts to touch, if it starts to mingle, if it gets messy, if it gets muddled. Where the other person might say, nah, that's just how I like it. It works better for me that way. So that might be just a high stress situation, right? But for
Yeah.
somebody else, that turns into a situation that looks ugly. It feels different now. And then you cross over from something being solely behavioral to now I have an emotional and mental connection to that.
No, this is a gem. This is a gem. And as you're saying, there is part of the complexity of burnout is that different people, like as you said, it's subjective at some level, because what may be burnout for one person may just be a resilience exercise, may just be a series of resilience exercises, or for somebody else it just may be classified as high stress. For somebody it just may be disconnected, and there may be some deeper issues, and so just it can't be overgeneralized. But at the same time, those marquee realities that bring it together can't be denied either. So
No, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, there are
no,
key markers. I mean, they say a duck's a duck's a duck. If it quack like a duck, walk like a duck, talk like a duck, it's a duck for everybody.
right.
You know, you just may have not experienced all of the duck to identify it's a duck, but it's still a duck.
Sure, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And as you're saying, like denying the reality of it doesn't make the reality disappear or untrue.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So as you've shared your story, and obviously when you see something, you can't unsee it.
Oh,
It
that's
particularly
my
in
favorite saying.
like once you've experienced it or you've seen it happen, like oh man, I almost start to see it before it even gets to that point. Um, as you're working with clients and your coworkers or those that serve under your leadership, how are you seeing the beginnings, the stage one or even the stage 12 of burnout affecting them?
Um, I think the initial part is when that behavior changes. You know, the person's a bit shorter. I've noticed that. So I'll talk about it from my client perspective first. So with clients, they start to miss visits. Or when they come into the visit, they have a lot of excuses. Oh, I'm just so sorry. I've just been really tired lately. Everybody's just getting on my nerves. And so you start to see that behavioral shift and the language that comes with it. Those feelings again start to change, right? Once this person was once hopeful, they were once driven and motivated to change and be better. And then it kind of takes over and you start to see they're slipping. It's no longer I'm hopeful about what's next. It's like, I mean, if it happens, it happens. You know, if I mean, it's just I'm never gonna get it. So it kind of I'm just here. So that blissful thought process starts to come in, um, and then as a therapist, I've had clients where I've had to tell them, listen, this is a dangerous place for you.
Mm,
Something has to change, or it's not gonna end well.
mm,
This can quickly escalate to a hospital stay at the psych ward. Right. This
mm,
could quickly escalate to um, a suicidal thought
mhm,
or a suicidal intent. Like it can happen that quickly. We look at people in the media and we say, how did they get to the place where they wanted to end their life? They didn't. It was a vicious progression to that, but they didn't look at any of the markers to say, I'm headed towards a cliff. Like this
yeah.
hike is only going to lead me there. And I think
Wow.
in the professional space, you like I was saying, you look at people, they start again that behavior, they start to become short. They're missing work. When they're at work, who they hang out with changes, how they're interacting with other people changes. Um, I worked in substance abuse, and
Okay.
I would know when my last job was a substance abuse job, and I would know when a person was going to slip back into substance abuse because again, those behaviors they're starting to lie. You call them and well, where were you? It's an unclear answer of where they were. They have a lot of excuses. Their spending habits start to become funny. Like a person who usually they always had money, now they're borrowing or asking for money. They start to change who they're hanging out with. And most people say, oh, they're just an addict. So that's what
Mm,
happened. Usually, I've found in my years, it's usually a stressor has come about. And because that's how they've always dealt with their stressors, they go back to the thing that worked for them before. But oftentimes in substance abuse, that's the very thing that kills them because their body is no longer used to identifying that way, depending on how long they've
Wow.
been clean. And so
Yeah.
you look at that person, oh, they just overdosed because they're a junkie. No, they're not a junkie. They may have been battling depression. They may have been battling burnout or anxiety or a life stressor that they simply didn't know how to navigate through. And so they did what felt comfortable before. And so in both spaces, before that burnout, you'll see people trying to figure out how can I make myself comfortable?
Mm.
How can I remedy this in a way that's going to protect me from the inevitable downfall that I'm feeling coming? Because if we're honest, everybody who
Mm-hmm.
felt burnout,
Mm-hmm.
you feel it coming. Once you get to the other side, you're like, oh, I'm burnt out. You would look, I remember feeling this way. I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
hating going to work. I remember
Absolutely.
looking at my kids like, if I just shake you one good time, looking at your spouse like, oh, if I just
Yeah.
like up everything, would they notice?
Mm-hmm.
You remember those thoughts and feelings before you jump off of it and you were like, oh, I'm buckling up on the plane to the crash and I'm owning it. We remember
Yeah.
those feelings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
having been there, trying to communicate the and affirming people in that space to say, I get it.
Yeah.
I
No, that's powerful. Yeah. No, you shared so much in that segment there, just on, just between just how it affects people in different ways, and the different ways that you relate to them. Um, as you were getting to the point about the feeling that's familiar with getting back to that point. Like I share with people all the time, this is why I'm so passionate about it, because part of the challenge was I went through two memorable experiences with burnout a couple of years apart before I started addressing it the third time. And I only started addressing it the third time because I said to myself, I remember this feeling and I don't want to go where it's going to continue to lead.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was called at that time. I didn't even have a name for it, but I knew the feelings, as you were saying. I was deeply connected with the feelings of where it was going and just where I was as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's one of the things. It's just trying to get my clients to understand. I don't sit on the other side of the computer screen or on the other side of the couch perfect. I sit here as a cheerleader, as a war buddy, as someone who understands what you're going through, not because I'm sympathizing, but I'm empathizing that story. And I sit in that space with you to say, I too have been through my own fair share of stress and burnout and difficulties, and you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
While yours might look different from mine, I'm here to help understand what those differences are and to just encourage you that you can make it forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not because I did it, you can. No, because you've made it this far in your life. And there have been other things that you've overcome, and this is no different.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be any different from that. No matter how hard it is a part of you. It is not you.
No, that's so powerful. That's so powerful. Everything you said, I'm co-signing on everything. But I do want to, one of the, I would say, frustrations with um, the viral messages and quotes of social media is this kind of overly making individuals responsible for everything without kind of putting out these blanket statements without seeing the dynamic complexities that contribute even to the responsibility that an individual has within, a particular circumstance or just the reality that they're in. So no, I love everything that you shared. Unique, you shared so much. You shared so much for our audience and with our listeners. What would be one takeaway that you would share for those who are burned out now? Maybe they're looking for a first step, or they're at that just space of, like you're saying, everything's all over the wall. The plate is all mixed up, and they don't even know where to begin. What would be the one takeaway that you would share with them?
I wrote this down because I have to follow instructions. I am not your traditional therapist who's just going to sit there and say, how does that make you feel? No, I'm going to get in your business. And so I had to write it down on my little narrowing it down to one is so hard. But if I could try, it's going to be a two-parter. Can I two-parter?
Absolutely.
Honestly, and this is not just because I'm a therapist, but it is because I'm a therapist and I've sat on the couch in therapy. Go to therapy. Go to therapy. And then the second part of that is decrease your stress. You have to. I tell my clients all the time, if it costs your life, if it costs your happiness, if it costs your peace and joy, it's too expensive. You can't afford it. Get rid of it. It's too expensive. Because it's only a matter of time before it's going to take your life.
Wow.
We don't like to think about stress in that way. We don't like to think about burnout in that way, but it's just that serious. I've had clients to commit suicide. I've had clients to end up in the hospital. I've driven clients to the hospital because they wanted to commit suicide. If you do not find an outlet, it will inwardly kill you. It might not take your life in the physical sense, but it will rob you of your joy. It will rob you of your fulfillment. It will rob you of family. It will eventually rob you of the job that you're holding on to, or the thing that you're holding on to. You will eventually lose it because you will be dead.
Wow. Yeah.
Get into therapy and decrease your stress.
Yeah. No, I love it. No, the two parts are absolutely necessary. And as you have shared, therapy has also been a part of my journey. And I'm quick to, even share as a pastor as well as in the work as a burnout coach. It's still a part of my journey, and just the importance of being well is an incredible contribution that you give to the world before even your gifts show up. You being well is critical. It's critical. Unique. We've had a blast today in this conversation and the space. For those that want to be able to connect with you and learn more about what you do, what are the best ways for them to connect with you?
Oh yeah, the best ways to connect with me is through my website, www.goodhealthpractices.net. Or you can find me on Instagram. I am there. You can look at my business page, Good Health Practices. Or if you find it easier to just find me Unique, __ on Instagram. I also have a podcast that talks about practical ways to do the stuff I talk about in therapy. Like I say de-stress, but what does that mean? What does that look like? And so I have a podcast dedicated to those, building that toolkit so that a person can actually they can thrive and survive in life.
Awesome. Would you share the name of that podcast?
Sure. It's Therapy Toolkit Podcast.
Okay.
So literally building a toolkit, think of it like any of the toolboxes that we've seen on TV, but you're building it with things to give you emotional health and wellness.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Unique, thank you so much for blessing us with your time, with your expertise, and with your passion and your heart, with yourself, your full self, and sharing your story with our audience today. We know that many people will benefit from the conversation that we've shared. And for all of our listeners, we just want to remind you that burnout is not the end, that it really is an invitation to begin again.
Oh, yes.
All right. Peace out.
Unique owes us nothing. Thank you, Unique, for pointing out that even professionals who help others through burnout are not immune from it either. Get help. That's the question I want to leave you with today. Are you brave enough when you recognize burnout to get help? Thank you for joining this episode of Burnout and Beyond. To see previous episodes, visit the podcast page on victorspeakslife.org. If you or your organization want to grow beyond burnout, share your information by clicking the Book Victor icon. Until next time, live well.